Have talks between the New York Mets and Carlos Correa reached a breaking point? Has he run out of teams to negotiate with? The new year is almost here, and all but one of this year's top free agents are signed to new deals. The only holdout? Carlos Correa. Over the past week or so, the baseball world has been turned upside down by the drama and the twists and turns of the Carlos Correa contract situation. On December 13th, Correa agreed to a 13-year, $350 million deal with the San Francisco Giants. 6 days later, on December 19th, Correa took a physical exam with the Giants. There was a press conference scheduled for the next morning to introduce Correa as a Giant, have him sign his contract, and make the deal official. But according to The Athletic, on the night of the 19th, just hours after his physical, the Giants discovered a medical issue that was concerning to them and made them second-guess the 13-year contract that they'd offered Correa. According to Ken Rosenthal and Dan Hayes, the Giants wanted to take a pause, postpone the press conference, and continue working towards a revised deal. Correa's agent Scott Boras reportedly gave the Giants a window of time to look into their concerns and decide if they had a deal or not. And if not, then Correa's side would re-engage with other teams. One can only assume that the Giants wanted to work some language into the contract which would protect them in the event that the medical issue they found got worse and seriously impacted Correa's ability to maintain his level of play. By the time this was reported on, the press conference had been cancelled without either side saying much. This rarely happens in baseball, at least not this publicly. Not surprisingly, speculation ran wild. Was Correa hurt? Did the Giants suddenly have cold feet? Within hours, according to The Athletic, Boras had contacted the Minnesota Twins. The Twins had been in on re-signing Correa since he opted out of their 3-year, $105.3 million contract signed last March. In 2022, the Twins paid Correa $35.1 million. According to Dan Hayes, this offseason, the Twins had offered Correa a 10-year, $285 million contract. The Twins offered Correa several deals to choose from, those being 6-year, 8-year, and 10-year lengths, with the 6-year deal paying the most per year and the 10-year deal paying $28.5 million per year. The Giants' fallout was well known at this point, and Boras reportedly told the Twins that Correa was still available, but they'd need to increase their 10-year offer. The Twins were apprehensive. After all, they hadn't requested a physical with Correa since they originally signed him in March of 2022. Things could have changed with Correa during the course of the season and all the way up to December 19th when the Giants found an issue. As a result, the Twins reportedly told Boras that they wanted to see the results of Correa's physical and have some time to determine if they still wished to proceed, but also that they wouldn't be increasing their 10-year, $285 million offer. Boras immediately turned to another option, Mets owner Steve Cohen. When news of the Giants agreeing to a deal with Correa first became known, Cohen reportedly said that he was interested in signing Correa but had started negotiations far too late. Boras thought there was still a chance the Mets might be open to signing Correa, and since Cohen and the Mets have spent $807.1 million on 9 other free agents this winter, bulking up the Mets and creating an all-star team, Boras saw a prime opportunity to cash in with his 28-year-old star shortstop client. 12 hours after the Giants deal fell apart, the Mets and Correa agreed to a late-night deal for 12 years, $315 million. This was 1 year and $35 million less than Correa had agreed to with the Giants 1 week before. So naturally, some wondered why Boras and Correa were in such a rush that they were taking less money and 1 fewer year. And also, Correa would have to leave shortstop and move to third base where he's never played in his career. Had Correa's value really dropped $35 million during those 12 hours? Or was Boras worried that his client's value was about to drop even more, and then agreed to the best offer that he thought he'd ever find? A few days later, Correa took his physical with the Mets, and once again, news broke that the Mets had concerns about what they'd found, just like the Giants. Given the medical concerns from 2 different teams and the Twins' refusal to increase their bid, there was now a belief that something must be wrong with Correa. According to Susan Slusser, the Giants were concerned about an old injury from his time in the minor leagues. In June of 2014, while he was a Houston Astros prospect with the High A Lancaster minor league team, Correa suffered a serious right leg injury sliding into third base, had to be carried off the field, required surgery to fix a broken fibula, and missed the remainder of the season. He was only 19 years old, and the surgery left Correa with a plate on his fibula, with screws attaching it to his bone. The injury was bad enough that when he returned, he wore an ankle guard for a while. This is believed to be the injury that is at the center of the Correa situation, and there's a good reason why. While Correa's right ankle hasn't caused him to miss any significant time since, he has had ankle issues over the years, including his right ankle, and the latest incident may have occurred at the end of the 2022 season in a game against the Kansas City Royals. On September 20th, 2022, in the 7th inning, Carlos Correa slid into second base on a stolen base attempt and collided with Royals second baseman Michael Maddux Massey. Immediately upon contact, Correa fell on his back in pain while grabbing his right ankle and feeling it. Was he checking on the metal plate attached to his ankle? After the game, according to Dan Hayes, Correa said that Massey had hit the plate on his surgically repaired ankle and that instantly it went numb and there was some vibrating. Correa also claimed that he was immediately fine, but now many are wondering if something happened to the metal plate which might have caused a concern for both the Giants and the Mets. It's entirely possible for a metal plate to shift after the fact, especially in the event of a collision. Correa was clearly in pain after that incident at second base, and now his deal with the Mets is in danger. In the days after the Mets having concerns, according to Jon Heyman of the New York Post and MLB Network, the Mets and Correa were optimistic that a deal could be worked out, but now things appear to have changed. According to the New York Post, there's only a 55% chance that the Mets and Correa will come to terms and finalize their 12-year deal, and the Mets are trying to include language into the contract which will protect them financially in the event that Correa misses time due to a pre-existing medical condition. In this case, the surgically repaired right ankle. Jon Heyman reported that the Mets and Correa's side have been going back and forth over how significant his right ankle injury is, 8 years after the injury and surgery happened. Naturally, Boras has said that his client is fine, that Correa has no current injury, and he's taken the stance that doctors are trying to predict the future of Correa's ankle with a crystal ball. According to The Athletic, Boras has been pushing back on any attempts to alter the Mets' deal with Correa, and according to Sports Illustrated, Correa now refuses to restructure the length or financial terms of the agreement with the Mets. Boras and Correa have reportedly told the Mets take it or leave it with the 12-year, $315 million deal. They don't want any of the terms changed, and they're reportedly open to walking away from the deal if the Mets insist on introducing new terms as a result of Correa's physical. 3 other teams have apparently reached out to Boras to check on Correa's availability. The Giants and Twins are both said to be interested in negotiating a shorter-term deal with Correa, but for now, the Mets remain Correa's main target, likely due to their chances of competing in the near future and also the length and value of the contract at stake. If talks with the Mets completely fall apart, Boras and Correa will have to re-engage with other teams and be more open to a shorter contract, possibly with new language related to the surgically repaired right ankle. With that in mind, it makes sense for Correa to work things out with the Mets before he loses out on even more money than he already has. As for the Minnesota Twins, until Correa officially signs with another team, they may continue to be linked to the shortstop. After missing out on all 3 other top free agent shortstops, their current shortstop is Kyle Farmer, who they acquired via trade from the Reds earlier this offseason. While Farmer will suffice at shortstop if necessary, the Twins have been very open about their interest in Correa. Despite only spending 1 year together, Correa left a good enough impression on them that they raved about how well he had fit into their locker room, the positive impact that he had had on younger players, and how he gave them another top weapon on the field to pair with Byron Buxton. However, if the state of Correa's right ankle is bad enough or concerning enough to prevent the contract from being insured, then there's absolutely no chance either the Twins or the Giants will want to re-engage. And before a deal can ever be reached, the Twins will still want Correa to pass a physical, and that's assuming that their 10-year, $285 million offer is still even on the table. Until then, the Mets and Correa are now locked into a game of chicken to see who will budge from their position first and give the other side their way. One thing is certain, if the Mets and Correa do not complete their 12-year, $315 million deal, all hell will break loose. What Correa's market will look like at that point is anyone's guess, but he will likely be unable to avoid addressing any concern that teams have about his right ankle. And while this must be a stressful time for Correa, who only wanted to secure his future with a long-term deal, he may no longer have that option after the events of the last 2 weeks. Never known for his speed or base stealing ability, he's likely now regretting the decision to attempt a stolen base in a meaningless game against the Royals 2 weeks before the season would end. If not for the collision at second base, it's possible that Correa would be a San Francisco Giant right now. But instead, at this moment, everything is once again up in the air. Stay tuned as this story continues to develop. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of our other videos. And check out this other video that's on the screen right after this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, go Twins!